What he just said has Celtics fans amped up, as Peyton Pritchard is motivated this season and not taking it as a gap year, but one that is going to bolster his standing within this Celtics rotation. Plus, we're going to be discussing what this lineup will really look for the Celtics, where Joe Mazzulla has this big question on who should be starting, Peyton Pritchard or Anthony Simons. We'll be getting into all of this and more on this latest episode of Celtics Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Velez, and with my co-host, Patrick Billings, for another great duo episode here on the channel. Patrick, we haven't had a lot to discuss because it's been dry a little bit here for the Boston Celtics, but with this new latest stuff coming out, I think it's a great time to have some good discussion. So how you doing, my guy?
Doing good, man. It's always to have a good little refresher on some other players. Been a lot of Anthony Simons in the news lately, so there's a lot to talk about with him, of course, and even in this one. But Peyton Pritchard getting interviewed by Noah Dalzell, so you know it's going to be a good interview, and a lot of good things are being talked about, so we got to cover this.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Peyton Pritchard, one of the hometown favorites that has really grown here over these last couple of seasons, changing and adding things to his game. And for a season that it seems like is going to have to be his biggest yet, which is crazy to say after last year with him winning Sixth Man of the Year, we're going to have to dive in and explore all the latest with Noah and him. So let's get into it, Patrick. Make sure to grab that snack and let's dive in, as ultimately we have two talking points to bring up about the Boston Celtics and Peyton Pritchard. The first one that we're going to be discussing is revolving around the starting position with this Celtics team, as it's been a big discussion on who should be getting that secondary guard starting spot. Should it be Peyton Pritchard or should it be Anthony Simons? And in the latest with Noah Dalzell and obviously Peyton Pritchard in that interview, she asked him about this, and Peyton Pritchard gave his stance on whether him or Anthony Simons should start for the Boston Celtics. And this was his response, Patrick: "It doesn't matter to me." He said, "A lot of things can change in a year, and you can start a couple of games, and you cannot start. For me, it's about controlling what I can control, and that's coming into the games and changing the game, and being an unbelievable player and helping my team win. So that's the only thing I'm focused on ever. It's not about accolades. It's not about starting or anything like that. It's about how I can become the best player possible. For me, this kind of quote wants me to run through a wall.
Yeah.
Similar, I feel Peyton Pritchard is just making me smile ear to ear reading this back. What are your initial thoughts and reactions to hearing this coming out of a guy who not only wants to win for the team, which is a key Celtic culture and identity piece, but also after a great season last year?
Yeah, I'm fired up. I mean, like we said in the chat, like this is awesome. Like hearing this from Peyton Pritchard himself. Again, one of his biggest seasons, winning Sixth Man of the Year, and his biggest role was being that high motor guy to come off of the bench and really change things for the Celtics when they were missing something. If they were in a drought, this guy came in to change the game with his play. And he says that in his quote as well, regardless of if he's starting or coming off the bench, he's going to give that same exact motor. And I think that's huge for the Celtics to have a guy like this that's been coming up with the Celtics at the beginning, being drafted by the Celtics, and now he's still around, being one of the vets in the locker room for the Boston Celtics in general. I mean, you love hearing this from him, and it definitely gets you excited going into next season, expecting something big from him.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Peyton Pritchard could bring. We talked about it on one of our latest shows or episodes here. I forget if it was a live stream or a video, but talking about Peyton Pritchard and the game that he can play, we were talking and discussing. I think he's a guy that, if he gets put into the right situation, one, regardless if he starts or not, could be someone that could average close near to 20 points this season for the Boston Celtics and be one of those main focal pieces on the offensive side of the ball, especially with his three-point shooting ability. We know how good he is, not only in creating his own shot, but being a catch-and-shoot scorer as well, running this offense. And with Jayson Tatum being obviously out for a majority of this season, the Celtics are going to need more of that three-point shooting from some of these guards. So guys like him, Simons, Derrick White are really going to have to step up. And Peyton Pritchard's specialty is that three-point shot. I think he's going to excel realistically in this lineup very well for Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that brings up the talking point is because Anthony Simons was just traded to the Celtics, right? And then you have a guy like Peyton Pritchard who's been around for a while now. So you kind of get into this predicament because he was in such a good season last year. Looks like he was going to start after that Jrue Holiday trade and all these different things that are going down. It's kind of just like, I mean, Anthony Simons comes in that trade as well, but I mean, there's just a lot of moving pieces, and you expect Peyton Pritchard to get that starting job, and now a guy like Simons comes in who's very talented offensively, but he's going up against a guy that has been in this organization for a while and really proved his point to make this starting lineup. And I think that both of them have a great case, and you could definitely see them kind of going back and forth maybe in the beginning of the season, but I don't think you could necessarily go wrong with either of these options. I think they're going to bring the same type of intensity, the same type of shooting from the 3-point line. I mean, Anthony being maybe a little bit bigger and a little bit more explosive than Peyton, but we know what Peyton's going to bring when it comes to facilitating and running the offense. And I think that they both bring two different things to the Celtics. And I don't think that this is a bad thing for the Celtics to have this type of, what would you call it, like a predicament, I guess you could say. This just isn't a bad thing for the Celtics to be going through.
Yeah, I think predicament's a good one. Maybe a training camp battle kind of coming into the season is what it's going to be viewed as by the fans. But to one point that you mentioned right there that I kind of want to build upon that I just thought of, which is the great part about doing these duo videos together, which is going to be sad to see go soon. But Patrick, talking about this, when we talk about the Celtics, we saw last year Luke Kornet was one of the familiar centers within this lineup, and Joe really trusted Luke Kornet because of his familiarity with the team, his long tenure, his experience with the Boston Celtics over some guys like Xavier Tillman or Neemias Queta, who people maybe wanted to see a little bit more with Kristaps Porziņģis being out in the beginning of the season. So maybe that's something that we could kind of see coming into this year as well. You mentioned Anthony Simons being a little bit bigger. Maybe people think he's a little bit more of a skilled player than Peyton Pritchard, but Peyton Pritchard's familiarity within this lineup could maybe give him that key starting job right out of the gate. But like you mentioned, whether it's Peyton Pritchard, whether it's Anthony Simons, I think throughout the season we'll kind of see them swap between games throughout the lineups. And I do think that, like Peyton Pritchard said, regardless of who starts, they're both going to be out there to compete and try to win, which is the main part for the Celtics going into this year.
Yeah, and I think we could even just count on that. I think that they could complement themselves really well on the court. I think Peyton is definitely really good. I think better with the ball in his hands, and Anthony is able to move off the ball a little bit more. I mean, he learned from Dame. He played with Dame. He's played with a couple of talented guards, and then he really kind of blossomed into more of a point guard now. But now he's with another very talented, facilitating, quick, twitchy guard like Peyton Pritchard, and kind of seeing them play together too is something that could be talked about. And having the spacing of Derrick White on the court as well, with Jaylen Brown kind of running a little bit of a small lineup like we talked about last time, maybe having Boucher at the center. And that's a lineup that they could look at, because we've talked about all these trades with Anthony Simons, but I think if we talk about what the team looks like if Simons is still here, I think that there's still a lot of good things that are going to come from this.
I would completely agree. And I think that him, like you just mentioned, him and Peyton Pritchard pretty complementing each other well on the court. We'll definitely see. We'll obviously see some of them playing with Derrick White as well. But I do think that this guard trio is very explosive offensively, and it's going to be fun to watch going into this season. But we got some more quotes coming from Peyton Pritchard as well, Patrick, as winning over everything. We mentioned this a little bit earlier with Peyton Pritchard in that last quote, but Noah Dalzell's still talking with Peyton Pritchard. He mentioned it's not a gap year, something that a lot of Celtics fans have been kind of looking at and kind of counting on for this season, with some of them thinking the Celtics should realistically tank. But we know with Joe Mazzulla, he's not that type of coach to want to, think that way, or, even want to be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And players themselves also feel that way, as well as at his one-on-one basketball tournament that he hosted in Roxbury. Noah got to talk to, obviously, Peyton Pritchard, and he said, there's only one mindset always, and it's never been on any team in my life where the mindset wasn't to compete for the championship. And he said people can say gap year and all of that, but as a competitor, that should never be it. And that's not the mindset of the city of Boston either. That last part of that sentiment really holds true, and that's why I'm so confused on why so many Celtics fans want to see them take. Maybe it's because AJ DeBansta's in the class. They obviously want to get the Brockton hometown kid after they lost out on Cooper Flagg. But ultimately, in my opinion, like I just mentioned, I don't see anyone on this team wanting to tank. And even with that case, I don't think the roster is bad enough for them to tank. So I do think we'll see them, even if they don't want to call it a gap year, maybe a little bit worse than this year, obviously. But I still think they'll be out there competing every single night to try to get the win, which is what you want to see as a Celtics fan.
Yeah, it's definitely not a gap year. Maybe a little bit more of a down year.
Yes.
Retooling, but it's not a gap year. Like we said, we both believe that this team is going to make the playoffs, whether it's kind of having to play one playing game or kind of just squeezing right into that 6th seed. And I don't think Peyton Pritchard needed to tell us that he is a competitor and what his mindset is, because clearly we see that without him speaking, and him just saying that is just adding on to that. And this just shows the type of player that the Celtics have, and adds on to the reason of why Peyton Pritchard should be starting as well. I mean, talking about the mindset of the city of Boston as well, especially within the last couple of years, getting a lot of championships, just the city of champions in the past decade. And this is just what they do, is just wanting to win championships, and he has that mindset as well. And I think it just fits perfectly. And with this gap year, as he's saying, this definitely isn't a gap year for him. It's definitely a great year for opportunity for him.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned that as well. I think for Peyton Pritchard, this is probably the most experience he's going to see in this Boston Celtics lineup, where he's going to have the best opportunity to become himself. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that the Boston Celtics duo record of most points scored by a duo is not by any of these historic great legends. It's not by Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's with Peyton Pritchard and Derrick White, two guys that are going to be healthy for the Boston Celtics this year. I think we're going to see them have some great games where they eclipse offensively. We want to look at that depth chart that we did have pulled up here as well. We do see that it does say that Peyton Pritchard is going to be slated off that coming off the bench, which we could see with Simon starting, but we could also see Derrick White going back into that shooting guard position that he played last year over the 2 seasons with Jrue Holiday here, in which Peyton Pritchard would then slot in at that point guard. I completely forgot about this last quote as well from Rich Gotham. Obviously, he said he loves Peyton Pritchard's mentality, saying he's a fighter, he has a chip on his shoulder, and he's like, no one's going to tell us we're not competing for a championship. That's what we're going to do, and I love it. That breeds confidence. Once again, another reason for why you could see Peyton Pritchard maybe even eclipse Anthony Simons within this rotation. Joe Mazzulla loving and feeding off of that confidence, but also having that respect of Peyton Pritchard being a long-tenured player here as well.
Yeah, and I think also just looking at the depth chart, seeing Sam Hauser at the 4, that doesn't really excite me too much. I told you that I'd rather Boucher at the 4, but yeah, I mean, Derrick White at the 1 is definitely interesting. I think you see like a little bit of a combo situation going on there. Just whoever they feel should be running the offense at that point. We see Jayson Tatum running that point guard, sometimes setting up the offense. So I think the positionally wise, it doesn't matter too much, but I hope Peyton Pritchard is going to get his opportunity, because I think talking about this more, it makes me more confident. But I think that now that you said it with Derrick White and Peyton Pritchard, do we not have a nickname for that duo? I mean, like, we had Cookies and Cream with KP and JB. I feel like we need to make one for them too.
Yeah, we definitely going to have to make one for these guys. They had the stock exchange with Jrue and Derrick last year. Now with Peyton Pritchard coming into the lineup, we're going to have to come up with something, and might have to come up with it quick before I do have to leave, because I think we're going to have something to have some jokes on going during the season, Patrick. But once again, it was a great time having this duo with you today. Hopefully, we can get another one squeezed in. If you guys don't know, I will be leaving Digest Media at the start of next month. So me and Patrick are trying to get as much content as we can for you guys here on Celtics Digest. But it's been great to talk to Patrick, to do these videos with you guys. We will be live tomorrow as well for the final live stream with me here. So if you want to come in, hang out, have some Celtics fun talk, we'll definitely be having that good time. And it's been a blast to talk the Boston Celtics with everyone. And Peyton Pritchard, geared up for that next season. Even though I won't be covering them on Celtics Digest, I will be geared up for Peyton Pritchard going into this year, and you definitely will hear that over where I still talk Celtics. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, hanging out here with Patrick and I, breaking down this Celtics team and looking in at Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons in a little bit of a different light. Once again, we appreciate all the love and support you guys have shown. Make sure to continue to hit that like and subscribe button. Help us get to our goal of 8,000 subscribers. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics.